Hi, I'm David's mom, and this is the last day of filming. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk for a moment about why I made this film. After finding David dead at the age of 30, I knew that I needed to find out some answers. I needed to know the how and the why. And so I left my job as an attorney and went on a journey, and that's the story you're about to see. I'm a writer, not a filmmaker, but David always belonged on the big screen. David was a writer, an actor, a director, and a musician. He was also addicted to painkillers. Sometimes I see the phrase, "in loving memory of David Fetzer," and I bang my fist on the table next to me. Just fuck. Why is it never ceases to catch me off guard? And so I look for you in all the people and all the places where I can hear your echo.
I think you called me, and then you called May, and she answered, and it was you on Davy's phone.
I don't even remember if we said anything first, but then you said, "Oh, he's gone." And I was like, okay. And I was like, he's like out and he's left his phone. I was like, okay, well, I was about to say like, okay, then have him call me when he gets back. Like, he's gone, okay? And then you said, "David is gone."
I mean, it was such a shock that you got off the phone because you had to tell other people. And so I stood up and started walking to the door, stopped, turned around, sat back down, and did it again because my brain just couldn't digest that news.
I got this call from Kenny, and I was actually worried that he was hurt because he just was obviously completely distraught because he had just heard from you. And he was crying and he couldn't really speak. And I just said, "Where are you? What's going on? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Like, what's happening?" And then he finally just said, "David's dead." And I couldn't understand that.
Ours was a normal enough family. I had been raised Jewish. I'm the one on the left. Robert, a lifelong devout Mormon, is the one on the right. David wrote once that he was born into the influences of the extreme left and the extreme right, landing him awkwardly, miserably, somewheres in the middle.
Well, I don't ever think of you or Dad as leaning so far to the left or to the right, but because when I think of that, I think of like pretty crazy people. Which you guys are not. But it was nice to see that in writing, because I don't ever remember him like saying that to me. But definitely, I'm sure all of us grew up feeling that way, very confused about having such different parents. David always struggled with that gap.
He was just so sensitive as a kid, as a little boy, just looking at pictures of him in videos. It would make me almost near tears even before he died, because he just looked like this precious angel that was just so overwhelmed by concern and compassion for everything around him, is the way that I viewed the way that he just would look in the camera.
David went through periods of anger at a young age, the most concerning of which was his penchant to torture Jesse's and Carly's dolls. But David also showed a tender side.
I must have been 7 or 8, and he gave me a sword to play with. And so we had a dueling contest, and we were both getting into it, and he ended up jabbing me in the eye. And even though they're padded swords, but still that PVC pipe in there is pretty sturdy. It ended up giving me a black eye. And but the best thing was, he made me a little eye patch after that.
David began acting in grade school. It provided an outlet for this tremendous creative energy that seemed trapped within him.
When we were younger in theater school, it was just David would get everything. David could sing, everybody loved him, all the girls wanted to kiss him. And the director of theater school at that point was like, he was like, David is the shit. David is the gem. Along with like 3 or 4 other of the all-stars in theater school. And I was around, I hung out with those kids, but they understood theater, especially David, really understood performing for people on a different level. And so I was just sort of watched, and it's so weird. I never got jealous. I was always happy for him because he was my best friend. I would get jealous of the other people that got to do things with him. If he was doing a play with Ned Stanley, I was like, fucking Ned Stanley, motherfucker. He gets to do all these awesome, hilarious scenes with David, and they're both really funny, and dang it, I'm dressed as an earthworm in the fucking James and the Giant Peach remake, and which really did happen. And I believe I was covered in a brown paper bag, and I had my face painted brown. And I had it on green tights or something like that. And David was singing this whole thing. Everybody in the audience was singing along with David, and then I came on
And as always, growing up, David wanted to collaborate with his siblings.
I think he had this chord progression that he'd written, and I was working on a melodic theme to go on top of it, and it came out pretty well.
And even after David died, Scott played the leading role in a short film David had written, Issip the Warrior, produced and directed by Kenny Riches, and music by David Fetzer.
I was probably being forced, thrust into a situation where I had to maybe deal with the grief a little bit more than I had to up to that point, and being around his close friends every day, and at least subconsciously that experience, with dealing with his material, I just remember it being hard, and I was depressed.
You want to go on a mission?
Good grief, here I am.
Hey there. Hi.
Good grief, where I began. And everything smells just the same.
Sweet Jesus.
Getting pretty tired of this fucking game.
There is a sibling bond so strong that the year before David died, Scott, David, Jesse, and Carly all got together in San Francisco for Scott's 30th birthday.
We had decided previously, before going down there, that we were gonna get a tattoo to kind of commemorate that, his 30th, and all of us together. And David was a huge, he was the one that basically designed it, our tattoo. Yeah, and so we got the CTR crest, and then instead of CTR being choose the right, but instead of having the CTR, we got each other's initials. And we all got it on the same spot. I don't think I'll ever have anything that I'm more proud of on my body. Scotty and I talked about it, periodically after his death, I just remember one time he said, so David was like the glue for us, right? Like you feel that way too. Now it will be the absence of David that's the glue, we have that shared experience and that shared bond of losing him.
For a full year after you died, I was unable to read. Returning to books, I began to be able to give words to my experience. Roger Rosenblatt wrote in Kayak Morning about the death of his daughter. I still squirm in the barber's chair, shaking my head in disbelief while the barber says, "Can't you keep still?" I find that I mimic that movement, shaking my head in disbelief at odd moments, and sometimes saying out loud, with no thought for who might be around, "How could this be? Am I questioning how you could have died? Or how I could survive your death?"
You don't express you're not an actress.
Yeah. Right.
You linguistically relate.
Yeah.
I think.
Which, of course, gives you time to think, and it also gives you that moment to perfect, so that very little comes out unrehearsed. Which is why, to some extent, we're doing this, because if I were to write this, it would be very rehearsed. It would come out, and it would be very important to me to capture just the right phrase to say what I'm feeling, because I can't express it directly.
Sad, sorry son of a bitch. You're a man. You're a man. You're a man. You're a man.
He was so capable in so many mediums that it was like hard for him to feel like he could just fully commit to one discipline of the creative process.
I think he just had such a wealth of knowledge coming from theater and coming from, having read, I think, a lot, tons and tons of plays. And like that part of it was so evident in his writing, I think, and that's kind of something you don't really see in, many people with, that have such a theater background, but also are able to translate that into film.
When I thought of David, it was almost always in ways in which he was amazingly different from me. In ways that I thought, David, I can't believe that I'm actually your father. I don't know where you got these gifts.
He was a really good actor, but it was really just a presence thing. It's like not many actors can. Let me put it this way: he could yell at a dog, and you'd like him. Now that means something very significant. Like imagine this: Dustin Hoffman or Tom Hanks or Jack Nicholson yell at a dog. You feel okay, right? Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise yell at a dog. You're disturbed. David could yell at a dog, but he could also be a character actor. And that's just like, it's a really powerful thing.
Bonjour.
Comment allez-vous?
Vous êtes belle.
Pardon?
Quand je pense à vous, je pense à le soleil. Radieuse. Tu es encore plus brillante que le soleil. Tu as les jambes très agréables. Donnez-moi des jambes. Donnez-moi des jambes.
the last Wednesday I saw a woman wear.
David really was like, he was the head of the band, and he would bring these like awesome works of music to me, and then I would just sort of riff on them in my like elementary like understanding of music.
It ate away the enamel on people's teeth, and some people would rap.
I just loved the way that he would tell, stories with the lyrics, which, and they were in the same, very similar type of way as his writing for film. He was just a really great writer.
On the last Wednesday, it was so bright. Blind people.
Mushman just appealed to that sentimentality, that childlike wonder. There's just a different gravitational pull to that. This can't go on unnoticed. This can't. You can't say that this isn't remarkable.
Would you
Naked
say David
David.
and Naked goes together?
I would say I think David and Naked. It was part of his comedy, part of his sense of humor. When we lived together, when we were roommates at 308, he used to live in the east room, your room, before you lived there, and probably Paul's bedroom at one point in time. We all lived in this apartment. But when David and I were living there, he would run from his bedroom to the bathroom naked to get in the shower every day, giggling. It was the best thing. It was so funny. It was like a cartoon, total cartoon. And then the Naked David photo series started. David was like, I have this idea. So he stripped down and we took a photo of him standing next to one of Bryson's huge paintings, and then we developed the slide film. This was back when you still use slide film. And then sent Bryson the slides just with no label, no nothing. So, he would just get them and look at them and find this Easter egg. And it was David.
What I left out, David, was my scream when I found you. I'll always regret invading the holy silence of your death. From Isabel Allende's The Sum of Our Days, speaking to her deceased daughter. Birth and death, Paula, are so similar, sacred and mysterious moments.
Just the fact that I knew where it had happened from you describing it to me, but I didn't know the specifics. I came down into that room and it was just, it was like a mixture of like relief that I was finally here where it happened, because that's what as soon as you said everything on the phone, as soon as I found out, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be where it happened and function somehow. And so I was there, so I was relieved, and then we could all grieve. We could be in this area, and you did, I think it was your idea, this amazing thing where it was like we created a whole powwow down there, so it wasn't this like, there wasn't a stigma attached to it, because there certainly was. When I walked down there, I was like, this is where he spent his last moments. This is where Betsy found him.
And one of the officers noticed this very tall bottle of prescription. There's a mantle around the fireplace. The officer literally took the top off the prescription bottle and poured them on the mantle and started counting them out, 2 by 2. And if you read the bottle, the prescription, there was a prescription for 90, 20 milligram Percocet. And after he counted out, there were 77. So 13 pills were missing. And this prescription was, filled, it was filled the day before probably. We now know it was filled kind of midday. And David died sometime after midnight. So sometime in that 12, 13 hour time span, David had taken these 13 pills. And then I remember the incredible sadness of when the morning was finally, the horror here at the house was finally being brought to a close, that the state medical examiners, officers, carrying David out literally in a body bag. I remember standing on the front porch, which overlooks our driveway, with you and Robert, and you sang, "There Goes Our David."
Do I ever get to feel you in my life again? Am I blocking the way with my rationality? Does my desire for meaning destroy any chance for it? Must everything that comes out of my pen be trite? Where are you, my son? Hidden in the reeds that pierce the mossy pond? Would I had a scythe.
The first time that I actually really reached out to David artistically was to play Everett Roos in The End of the Horizon. Pretty much everything everyone said after the show was up and people saw the show, that it was really difficult to separate David from the character. He was familiar in a way that was striking to everybody. That whole experience of David playing that role and being in that production was effortless for him.
Why do you think that was?
Because he was playing himself. Everett was an old soul in his family and his time. He didn't feel quite like he could find the one thing that he could focus on. So his focus was scattered, and he felt trapped by people not understanding his desire to navigate and his need. It wasn't just a desire, his need to navigate life in a little different way.
Love me. Love me. Love me. Love me.
Having David on set, it was kind of the first time where I had discovered one of his real roles in life. Seeing him on set, that was his natural home. He was very composed and very thoughtful of every line in the script, but also the on-screen and off-screen relationships.
Oh, a pen. This is a can. A what? A can. A what? A can. Oh, a can. This is a can. A what? A can. A what? A can. Oh, a car. This is a car. A what? A car. A what? A car. Oh, a can. This is a can. A what? A can. A what? A can. Oh, a car. This is a car. A what? A car. A what? A car. Oh, a car. This is a car. A what? A car. A what? A pen. Oh, a car. This is a car. A what? A phone. A what? A phone. Oh, a car. This is a car. A what? A car. A what? A car.
It was the first time I had really seen him at ease at something that I feel like should have been very stressful. The Must Come Down's character is very much David, and I wrote it for David. So that evening on set when we shot David playing Boy in the Well, it was within the first week of shooting, and we were all already overwhelmed because it was our first feature film. It was such a stressful day, and then at the end of the day, we thought, okay, we'll have David play 2 songs, just all the way through. And Boy in the Well was, I think, the first one, and it just changed the entire mood on set completely. I mean, it just leveled everyone out, and it was this beautiful, chilling, amazing moment where he just sat by himself and played it all the way through. When I called cut, it was like watching a concert. Everyone applauded, and it was amazing.
say. Maybe he will climb out someday. The boy who tumbled down the well composed a song before he fell. That echoes out the walls of stone in words so shrill they chill the bone. Maybe now I'll be left alone.
David's dark side was a very private part of him. And so I think Seth at the wake kind of said that really poignantly. He said something about, you know, David had that weight and he carried that burden, but he was always holding other people up and you didn't see that side of him. And it's kind of true. It wasn't very easy to see. You just kind of knew that the sadness was back there.
He almost had this romanticism with death and the morbid, and he loved the work of artists who died young, and he used death in comedy a lot. He took all these roles where the character died.
David always had a sort of self-defeating or tragic idiom. Whatever he was doing, it was usually tainted with like failure or bitterness or sadness.
From How to Be Both by Ali Smith. Can we never get to go beyond ourselves, her mother says? Never get to be more than ourselves? Will I ever, as far as you're concerned, be allowed to be anything other than your mother? And will I ever be allowed to be anything other than the mother who lost her child?
The history with painkillers is David's back. And since I've known David, he's had a bad back.
I refer to David's back as, you know, equivalent to a man who's like 75, 80 years old.
I remember once his back went out and he didn't have a cell phone. None of us had cell phones then. And he crawled all the way home from work and had to take like a week off. And it was like just kind of shocking that his back was in such bad shape, such a young, you know, vital guy.
At one point, he was telling me that while filming Must Come Down, he hopped off a bench or off of a brick wall, and the impact from hitting the ground shook up his low back. And in that scene, he goes like this. And I think he plays it off pretty well as being just like, I'm looking around, but in fact, he said that it was excruciating.
Then there was the short film in which he was shot and had to fall into a grave for 6 takes. All of this came together in a perfect storm with David's creation of Newark's Theater Machine in 2011. While praised by many, it took a great toll on David.
I think that David really was good at being liked. And I think that it was really hard for him to be in the position of kind of being the bad guy. And he was sort of the bad guy. And I think I kind of made him the bad guy because I was like, you're not gonna make me the bad guy in this.
I think that not everyone takes those projects as that kind of stress. You know, I think to some people that are born producers, they just take care of business. But David was so considerate, he was worried about everyone else all the time. He was always worried about whether he was going to make someone upset or inconvenience someone or whatever, and he was on a tight budget as well. You know, it's kind of like when he was behind the wheel of a car. He was the worst driver, but you know, he was always so concerned with everyone else on the road. Instead of just driving the car, and if someone wants to go around, they can go around or whatever, but he was hyper aware of everyone else on the road and really stressed out and often angry.
That level of sensitivity can render you nearly paralyzed in some moments or some periods in your life if you're just feeling it, because you just feel so much and you don't. And there's a constant inner dialogue of what you should be feeling, what you should be doing for other people, lots of shoulds.
David had so much empathy, so much sensitivity. He was living in this world of like boundless creativity. Only so much of it could get manifested. And I noticed that that was hard for him from the early days. Just the fact that he could create more in his mind than a person could actually do. But he was more prolific than he ever gave himself credit for. It was amazing. And even if you told him that, he would think about what he wasn't doing. And so there was that was hard on him, the physical pain, and then I think it just crosses a threshold. And sometimes you can tell when the threshold has been crossed, sometimes other people can tell, sometimes it kind of just slips through, and then the rules change.
To help David cope with the pressures of producing, his doctor, Jamie Longi, prescribed Adderall for concentration and Xanax for anxiety, in addition to the Percocet he had already prescribed David. The combination altered David's world, as he describes in this 2011 email to best friends Seth and May. I wanted to hit you both up to let you in on what's going on with me. It might not excuse how elusive and unresponsive I've been lately, but hopefully it'll put it into context. At the beginning of the summer, I was prescribed a drug called Adderall, which is very similar to Ritalin. I was also feeling crippling anxiety all the time and was prescribed something for that as well. Under normal circumstances, I'd have opted for a non-medicated solution, but I justified it as being necessary then because I had so many people to answer to, and when the advice comes from a doctor, it just makes it easier. At first, my medication was working extremely well and right away. But after a little while, I started feeling inauthentic and irritable. I started feeling it affect my personality and my behavior. That rightly freaked me out. And a bit before your wedding, I quit my prescriptions cold turkey. The withdrawal was intense, to say the least, and soon after returning from Michigan, I started medicating myself again. At the time, I was hosting Ashley in Salt Lake City and felt extra pressure to be energetic and present for her. I took the medication discreetly so she wouldn't know. About a month ago, after Ashley had left, I quit my medication cold turkey again and have remained off of it. I may have been behaving erratically on the drug, but being off it has been nuts. Unrelenting lethargy, depression, anxiety, antisocial behavior, complete lack of drive, far worse than before I took the drug. What I'm doing now is eating well, getting exercise, positive exercise like fall hikes and stuff, forcing myself into social situations whether I like it or not, and finally I'm telling my close friends and family about all this nonsense, just so I don't have the added pressure of trying to keep it a secret. I hope you guys understand, and I hope you forgive me for my selfishness and for being secretive, and maybe even at times downright dishonest. My pride has taken a beating. How it hurts to know, David, that you suffered the pain of shame. More than anything else, I wish I could have spared you that. And yet, as Stephen Fry wrote in Moab is My Washpot, physical pain and self-loathing are not all bad. Those devils have been my angels. Without them, I would never have disappeared into language, literature, the mind, laughter, and all the mad intensities that made and unmade me.
I mean, he was extraordinarily angry at himself and constantly, you know, one of the reasons I think he would never shame anybody and he would never feel he'd never invoke embarrassment on anyone else is he felt it so thoroughly and so painfully himself. And, you know, he aimed the darkness back at himself only. He wouldn't put it out there. And I don't think it was healthy. That, you know, he wanted to be a positive effect on the world to the point where it really did damage to him.
On December 31st, 2011, David wrote this in his journal. Now it's New Year's Eve, and I have too many resolutions to make. As I lie here drinking Jaeger from the bottle and popping Valium that I stole from my friend, I wonder how the fuck I'm gonna pull this new year off. I'm 29 and I work at a frozen yogurt shop making minimum wage. I'm $10,000 in debt and counting. This is the pinnacle year of my Saturn return, and I couldn't feel more like a stupid, lost child. Was there ever a moment where you thought he might have committed suicide?
There was a moment when I looked at his last journal entry where I thought maybe he's giving up, and maybe there was a part of it that was not even a conscious decision, but it was sort of just like letting go a little bit more of control because of feeling so ashamed of himself. But I think of it more of like flirting or dancing with the dark side, and he had always had that flirtation with it. It just, his addiction got so much more severe, and his inner battle was so much harder to see.
I would see him, and never having a friend that was a drug addict, I didn't really understand fully what was going on. But there were some nights I would see David, and he would just be falling asleep in his chair, out of his mind. He wouldn't remember what we talked about at all the next day, you know, but for me, I chalked it up to him just being wiped out from dealing with this, from these productions. So
that's when he really started taking a lot of pills.
So could you tell that without knowing that was happening?
No. And in retrospect, it makes so much more sense. Because there were so many things that just kind of weren't logical. Like, it was coming from the brain of someone that was on pills.
I feel like the pill situation for me and David were never it was never at the forefront. And so I never really thought about it. And yeah, there was one time at my house, I don't know if it was Christmas, where he just passed out.
Yeah, it was one of the Christmases.
Yeah, it was the most bizarre thing. And I think that's like the one memory that I have where I'm like, oh, I should have known something. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Like on the couch or something?
No, he literally just was standing, joking, and then I looked away, and then he was on the ground.
Whoa, for real?
Yeah.
I never heard about that.
I feel like you were there. I don't remember. I think we laughed it off, and I was like, what the fuck? Are you okay? Like, what's happening? Like, and he was like, I don't know. And he, he was amazing at talking that way, just kind of
misdirection.
completely.
Well, because he giggled at it.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
I think the only times where, whatever, all of this in retrospect, it's like, oh, idiot, you should have noticed. But there were a few times, like when we went to garage,
yeah.
and you took that photo, and he was out of his mind. I feel like that was, I've said this to you before, I feel like that was a moment where he probably almost just died in front of us. Like he was that loopy, but he was also under all of the pressure and stress of the productions and all of that stuff he was doing. So we kind of got used to seeing him really exhausted.
Right.
But it never equated, oh, he's fucked up. It's more, oh man, he's like really hustling, and
he was wearing himself
now
on the ground.
Yeah.
The idea of David being an addict was not in the realm of possibilities. David was using pain pills. David was perhaps acquiring some of those pills illegally, but David being an addict, the analogy I would say is this. No one thinks their house is going to burn down. Everybody knows houses burn down, but that always happens down the street or in the next neighborhood or in the next community. Your house, you never think in terms of your house burning down. Well, I think the same thing was happening here. You know addiction's there. You know it's unfortunately rampant among people who are homeless and disadvantaged and so forth. You know that addiction actually affects professionals. But, that's down the street. That's over in the next community. That's sort of, it never would happen to us. And you don't really sit there and have that kind of conversation with yourself. It's just buried in there. It's just buried. And so, yeah, David had issues with pills. We had seen it. We had all seen it. And I know some of his friends saw it more closely than I did, but everybody dismissed it. And everybody dismissed it because the house on fire is somebody else's house. It's not here.
Had we not been so naive, David, would you still be alive? Would we have been spared these tears? Behind and through the waterfall, over and beyond the hillock, enshrouded by the mist lurking thickly under the heavens, I recline in my own land of tears, and I cry. The tears cleansing and stinging, entreating me to imagine, to grasp the world without you, yet asking how it was that I, your mother, did not keep you from leaving.
He went to an urgent care, and he came back and he actually was like, I met this really awesome doctor who's like, gave me all this information about how to wean oneself off of pain pills. And this was when David said that he was doing this different prescription that wasn't Percocet. So he took those pills when he got home, and the same exact things happened. He couldn't really focus on me. He was out of it. He was not aware of himself at all. He was like stumbling, and he kind of just sort of almost passed out on the couch. And I got really scared. I looked up the medication. I forget what medication he told me he had gotten, but I remember looking it up, and I was like, these are really severe reactions to this medication. I got really scared, and I was like, should I call 911? I didn't know exactly what to do. So I actually found that doctor's card in David's stuff, and I called, and I said, hi, my boyfriend David came to see you today. You prescribed this medication to him. He's having this reaction. Do I need to call an ambulance? Do I need to take him to the hospital? And Dr. Powers said, I didn't prescribe, he didn't say that outright. He said, I think you guys need to come talk to me. And I said, I don't understand. I just need to know if I need it. I'm worried. I need to know if I need to take him somewhere. And he reiterated, I think you guys need to come talk to me. And I said, I don't understand. You prescribed me this medication. He said, I didn't prescribe him that medication. And then it dawned on me for the first time, he's saying that David has a problem. And I was like, I don't think, he's not abusing this stuff. And Dr. Power said, it's nice that you think that. I think you guys should come talk to me. And so I was like, what the fuck? And I just remember thinking, like, this fucking guy probably doesn't even know who David is. Like, he sees a bunch of people in the day. He has no idea what's going on. He doesn't know who David is, whatever. And David was at this point in our bedroom asleep. So I woke him up and I said, I think we need to go see this doctor. I don't know what's I'm a little nervous. Like, I think we should just go. And he was like, okay, yeah. And he got dressed and we got to the car. And that's when he told me that he had lied. So he started crying and he said, I didn't take those other pills. I took Percocet. I lied. And I had no idea what to do. I'd never met someone that had a problem like that before. I didn't know. I just said, okay. I don't even remember what I said to him. We just got in the car and we drove. And we drove to that doctor. David was really quiet. He looked really, really ashamed. And I told Dr. Powers what had happened, what I had been told. He explained that David had he was, had an addiction to these pills, and that there were ways to get him off of it. And and then I think I called you and Jessica right after.
I was sitting in the basement with him, and he was just telling me about how humiliating and how humiliating it had been to be caught, and how ashamed he felt, and that it was so debilitating, that shame, but he was going to, all the while during this time, he was always so driven by purpose. I remember he would use that term a lot, that he was going to find his purpose through it all. So I think he really wanted, as much as he wanted to just fucking hide under a rock and not, he was just so mortified. I think that in some ways he was probably pretty grateful, and he was determined to, win Ash back and make it right. And so we talked about that, and I remember sitting there with him and wondering whether I should ask him if he was okay, if he needed, my help, or like what I could do, I just didn't know. I didn't know what to say, and of course you still just think like, he's fine. Like, it's David, he's not an addict.
And so he had to admit that he had a problem. And so he started calling everyone and talking to them. And this is a good example of how much I didn't realize, not only with how severe of a problem David had, but also how that whole system worked, about how addictive painkillers actually are because they're so accepted. Is that when he told me, I laughed. And then he had to clarify, like, I am dead serious. And then I asked him, are you laughing? And he said, no, I'm crying.
After learning of David's doctor shopping, we brought him back to Salt Lake City to address the issue with our family doctor, Dr. Jamie Lange. Here's how I described that meeting in the local weekly. I went with David to visit Dr. Lange on June 28, 2012, to support him and to make sure he told the whole truth about his substance abuse. David admitted to Dr. Lange that he had been taking 5 milligram tablets of Percocet at a time, multiple times a day, contrary to the label instructions. I braced myself, expecting to hear the term addict, but it never came up. The words addiction and addict were, in fact, conspicuously absent from the conversation. After the thwarted intervention in June, David and Ashley moved to Seattle, and David began seeing a new doctor who was attempting to replace the oxycodone, the main ingredient in Percocet, with non-addictive medications. Here are some of the emails between David and his Seattle doctor. Hello, David. After consideration of what you told me on the phone, I'd like to try the following: Tylenol sustained release and nortriptyline. The nortriptyline may also be helpful in sleeping at night. I'd like to get you off the temazepam as it can be habit-forming. You're young and it's best to prevent long-term medication requirements. David responded, "Thanks, Beth. I don't remember temazepam being habit-forming, but I'd rather not mess with anything like that from now on." 1 month before David's death, David wrote, "Hi, Beth. The pain has gotten worse and I'm having the most difficult time at night when I try to sleep. Rather than fall back on Percocet, is there some other pain aid that will help? David, I completely agree that it's best to continue without the Percocet, and you've been doing a great job so far, so congratulations for that. Let's try a higher dose of a non-addictive sleeping aid first before moving on to temazepam. Take care, Beth." Did he seem to be on the mend?
I would say I felt like,
Yeah,
I mean,
it seemed like he had things more under control.
Yeah.
You know, he had come out to us about, you know, his addiction and things like that. I started seeing another, like a, I don't know what you call it, like a homeopathic doctor, and talked about how these like hippie pain pills don't do anything, stuff like that. But the exercises were helping, and all of that stuff.
Though David was doing better, he visited Salt Lake City twice between June and December 2012, and each time I discovered got prescriptions for oxycodone from Jamie. On December 19th, 2012, Jamie prescribed David 90 tablets of 20 milligram oxycodone. 16 hours later, David was dead. How do you feel about Jamie now?
The anger isn't there as much. I mean, there's no point anymore to be angry, I think, for me, because it's done. I was angry for a really long time because that sense of feeling so fucking robbed is just, and I still feel that, but more than anything, I just feel, I had to really train just compassion. David obviously he was desperate enough in LA to doctor shop, he would have found a way. You know, there you go through those thoughts where you think, well, he was addicted, so he would have found a way, and maybe it would have happened anyway. And certainly Jamie didn't help. But I think the biggest thing, and you know, obviously the biggest injustice was when you and Davey sat down with him that meeting, and there was, you know, he basically gave his blessing for David to keep taking pills. You know, I think that when there wasn't that intervention in that moment, that was when he really let us all down and David down.
And I just don't think I can ever make peace with the decision on the part of the doctor. I don't understand it. And I can't, even if I try, and I don't really want to, but even if I try to look at it from a different perspective, I just can't get there. There's nothing about it that makes it make sense. And I mean, 90 also, it's not just the dosage, but it's the amount. I can't understand that. And I, again, I mean, it was up to David. David did what was done in the end, but, and who's to say if it was 20 pills, maybe it would have ended up the exact same way. But we talked about this too, like the psychology of there being a huge amount to an addict is not a tenable scenario. And anybody that knows even a tiny bit about the dangers of that stuff should know that. And they should act on it like appropriately, and I just can't get over that. Because you had a person that wasn't able to act with their normal judgment. That's how that is. It was, I mean, more than anything, obviously, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, once I heard the situation and how David got a hold of a bottle of 90 pills or whatever it was, it seemed impossible that a doctor would do something so negligent. And I was furious. Yeah.
And even now?
Even now, I feel like if I met him face to face, I would have a hard time not letting my temper go.
So if I have a chance to interview him for this documentary, what would you want me to ask?
So that's the thing. If I saw him face to face, I wouldn't ask him a thing. I think I would just
Clock him?
I would kill him.
My memory of that visit was that we laid it out for you and said, here's why we're here. It's not just that we need this, but, you know.
No, the problem is focused on trying to get him to get the epidural, get something else done, and
Right.
try to do that. And until we could get that, which we got it fairly quickly, I think.
Yeah.
And then ideally then wouldn't need to use.
Unless, and here we're back to the addiction component of it, unless
Right.
what you're dealing with is addiction.
Right.
And so what I see in this and what was, you know, probably the hardest for me was feeling that we had that opportunity to learn about him being addicted, and it didn't happen.
I agree. It didn't.
And
For a
you
number
feel
of-
like it didn't happen because you don't feel you were given the information.
Well, and I feel that part of it's my responsibility too, to try to get the information, but I didn't get the information. Like, did someone just need to, all you have to do is say, you know, now's not the time, but you know, that you can, but at that time, as I mentioned to you, I just come in, okay, I can see, you know, it's not going to be easy for anyone else if there's a back and forth on that discussion. Once it's missed, it's missed. I accepted it, took it, didn't want to really put it on anyone else. Just said, okay, you know, I should have been able to figure it out too, on my own. I usually feel I do a good job, but I didn't, you know, like that, figuring out exactly what his issues were, to say, no, you can't really have any of these things. We'll try to do these treatments. Maybe you have to change your plans and stay in one place until you get it taken care of. I mean, whatever it takes. But, and perhaps the situation is we allowed him, and he was gifted, to control the discussion. And I didn't see it. It's very possible. We're both bright people. Somehow it didn't come out. We could have just said, hey, wait a minute, this is not what's really happening.
Yeah.
What is the issue here? You know what I mean? And it's not something that I picked up. And whether or not it was deflected in discussion at all, and that's always possible.
I mean, the most critical thing he said was, I just missed it. He made a mistake. There was critical information that did not get processed. He did tell me, I don't think I've ever told anyone this, he did tell me that when David, you know, came to him and was asking for pills, at first he said no. And David charmed him.
As a physician, you really don't even want to be in a position where you have to use pain medication. We kind of agonize over those, at least I do personally, because you want to help somebody, but you don't know if it's going to become a problem for them or if it is a problem. You kind of trust their sincerity that, you know, they're going to be careful with it, they understand it, but you never know. Many physicians have chosen, and some of us have, considered it, where we just say, I'm not doing any of them. I don't care if they're in pain. I'm not going to prescribe them, period. In David's situation, certainly it was, much more personal for me. I knew you all. It made it difficult to, you just have to keep questioning because you always try to do a better job, and you realize even if you feel you work hard at that, you're going to miss some, and that's hard to swallow. It's something I always have to live with.
Yeah. Does it help talking?
I think about it a lot.
Is it having two boys, not that much younger than David?
Well, it's just tough to watch people because you're really trying to help and then
it goes awry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone acted with malice. No one. And even would you say, the hard one is Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
For everyone else, I don't even think anyone acted negligently. We lived our lives with the information that we had. And few of us were aware of what addiction looked like unless we went down to Pioneer Park. And then it was obvious. So we lived our lives and we missed it. Jamie, presumably had more information than we did and missed it. Was that negligence? I don't know. So I don't know what blame means. I don't know what blame does. For us, it doesn't heal any of the scars. It doesn't obviously bring David back. It doesn't even help express emotion, I don't think, So I don't know what blame. I don't think this film was ever about assigning blame. Or if it was, I think at the end, you have to come out recognizing that blame isn't, I don't know. From Agat by Marlene van Niekerk. First numb, then anxious, tears later, an aperture in the skull. Now the memories are a stream, unquenchable. For parting is no single act, it is like a trailing streamer. Neither have I found is grief a single act, but like the clouds, once heavy with rain, they spend themselves, becoming the white wisps strewn across the summer sky. Though transformed, the grief will remain.
Looking back, I would choose to live in that week for the rest of my life. It's this weird comfort where, obviously, take living with Davy alive, but just being able to almost revel in that sense of loss and love was transformative. It was so important. It was so important to be able to feel you could just mourn and scream and cry freely and then just being able to be physically present with him, even though just with his body, was hugely important for me. I just remember wanting to get in the coffin with him and just lay there, and just.
In the room, there were such neat things. There were cards and flowers and things of David's. And I remember picking up his 30th birthday card.
Yeah.
From Betsy.
Mm-hmm.
And reading that. And that was what broke me, because that was the message that he had his whole life left.
I remember sitting with him.
Then as I was hugging everyone, I turned around and saw like, oh, David's in the room, which was really intense. And then after a little while, you guys left. And then it was just me, Patrick, and David.
Did you guys try talking to David?
No. I could barely breathe.
And then we moved over to the storytelling, which was the most amazing part for me. The storytelling and the singing. And I don't understand at all how Seth and May were able to sing all those songs without losing it. Like Sweet Days and Shine On and all those songs, and I was just losing it the whole time, It was just seeing all these people come together. That's the other thing. There were, so many people that came. People that I had never met, people I hadn't seen since high school, people that hadn't seen David since high school, but that had been affected by him enough to come celebrate him at this wake. There's so many people. And that was the beginning of my sort of positive outlook and my really understanding what an effect David had on everybody's lives, not just my life.
You know what it is that people die all the time, and some of those people are fucking assholes. Some of those people suck. Some of them are fine. Some of them are, But I think it's a testament to David that he was always compelling people to be better. And even in his death, he's doing the same thing.
It can be hard for me to try to extract myself from the pain of it to find positive things. The foundation, of course, would be the big one. From his death, we've gotten this foundation that really is there to enable and help young filmmakers and young playwrights. It's a huge gift.
It's crazy because it was, and this I think is a testament to you and your strength as a person and as a mother and as a force, is that we came together and it felt like the beginning. It didn't feel like the end. This is the beginning of the legacy, which is probably the most important thing that I came away from that with, was the legacy, and how it fits into my life and how I want to carry it on.
don't feel like he just let me down or his family down or his other friends. I feel like he let the whole world down that didn't get a chance to witness who he was yet. You know, oftentimes in conversation when I'm talking about David and people, you know, they tell me they're sorry or whatever, I feel like they can feel bad for me at that moment, but I feel bad that they never actually got that opportunity. Because every single person that David met, it was instantly, they fell in love with David. And he had so much to offer the world, but, you know, he, in true David manner, he fucked up, and it's infuriating and heartbreaking.
Is it just our desire to solve mysteries? Is it just that sense of, I need that closure? I just need that closure. I need to know. Maybe that's it. And you know, that's a funny thing too, because I kind of do feel closure now. In a way, maybe I didn't before. I feel able to put this behind me, not David's death, but the search. And really, maybe it does open the door to be able to reconnect. You know, how I said that I felt I'd lost David in so many ways in trying to do the clinical work of interviewing and camera work and lighting and putting together a movie. And now that I have done that and have discovered what there was to discover about the how and why, you know, there is that closure and I can reconnect. Yeah.
She's been wondering what she did wrong. She says, please come home. I'm shaking and crying. Please come home. I'm lonely and dying. Come home, spaceman. Please come home. I'm shaking and crying. Please come home.